Excuse me, everyone. We're gonna start a lab. So we heard from many students that the project was hard to start and was hard to begin writing source code, changing it. So this lab, we're going to do something around PostgreSQL source code to write some new source code and test it out. So write some code, compile and make PostgreSQL again, and then run some SQL to test out the code we just wrote. And at the same time, the code we're going to write is debugging code. So it will help you in the project if you write some source code to print some values also, to see if what you've written is correct or if it's doing what you expect it to do, right? So that's what we're going to do in this lab. And in about an hour, a bit less, so at around 5, the teacher is going to come by to talk a bit more about the project and the problems you might have. So hopefully at the end of this lab you have a better idea how to start, how to what to write, etc. All right. So the slides again are on online, so you can get them and you can find all the necessary documentation that are on the slides. This is very simply how you make and install source code if you have done it previously. So every time you want to try out some code you have written, you need to remake and install PostgreSQL from the source code and then test it out in a newly created database. But these are not sufficient if you have never installed from sources. Here is the documentation that I gave also at Lab 3, I think. But I suppose by now everyone has done this at least once. So configure, you can do it once normally, but then if you change source code, you need to rewrite the make and the sudo make install, and then start the database again and test it out in a new database.
Do you see rewrite? Like change the way make is written?
No, rerun. I'm sorry.
Rerun. Okay.
Yeah, rerun the make.
Okay.
So if you write source code, the second line, you always have to rerun. So what we're going to try today is simply to print out some values that are stored in PostgreSQL. So to print, so there are many ways, multiple ways to debug source code. The easiest one is to print. Until last week, I thought that was not possible. But the important thing is to write a line with printf. So this will be the line that you will write. And then the second line is important, is you have to flush the buffer to the output. Otherwise, you're not going to see anything when running. So that was the problematic one. So when writing some source code, if you want to know the value of something that you possess, you need to write printf anything you want, the message you want, and you can also write variables. So I put the documentation there, but basically in the string you can add some what is it, percentage, then an s or an f or an I, depending on what type of data you want to write, and then at the end just a comma and the variable. You will find all of that in the printf documentation. And so as a first exercise, try simply to print out one variable, the stats min rows, in the function range type analyze. So range type analyze is one of the main functions used when analyzing range types. You find there the C file where it's in, and in that function try to print this variable and test it out. So write the print in the function, then compile again, run the install again, and then test it out on a small test database. Okay?
déjà j'ai pas accès à une À partir si ça passe. Non, c'est un truc à voir avec.
Like this 300 rows to give the thing.
No, I think for a Mac, now I'm actually logging Dude, see, I told you I can control. Okay, so now you're saying.
Sorry, you got it. Tu as le truc.
Mission impossible. It's just print this thing's this.
Frame, il n'y a pas normalement comme moi je peux faire là. J'ai assez, je suis Windows bien, alors je peux juste faire.
I don't know what I did, and I have two directories, and I don't know which is the one installed from source and which is not. Can you these are the two. Here I have more files. This config log is not here.
Probably that's the one.
Okay.
If you do /configure, I think the config log appears. Can you look at it? Maybe. If you look at the dates, config log should have been created. You see these ones, config log, status, and make file. These are created when you do /configure because they don't have the same. So you should.
I will try. I'll try and adjust.
But I think if you have the config log,
It's this one. Probably this. Thank you.
Yes.
I opened the PC again. I should create I think I created a new.
When you install it, so you need to look at it. You save the source code wherever you have
Where is it?
when you compile it, you install it and the search and the search. You only have this post, right?
Should I uninstall Brew?
Install, and the installation is going to put your compiled code somewhere in that's it, slash user
You asked me to uninstall it.
previous version.
How did you write the same? The other line. That one oh, you mean restart. Because I'm not sure if the server is already started. If you write start, it's not going to work. So if it's already started, you should restart or stop and start. If it tells you like is the thing running or not, that's probably that it's not started. As long as you don't write stop or don't restart your PC. Yeah, but this happens after restart. Yeah, after restarting the PC, then you need to just type start. Yeah, no, just exiting from PostgreSQL is not stopping the server.
I mean, I'm started. Can I just start the database? That means I have to have
Insert I.
and you just
So you did that. Yeah, then it started. Well, you start the server, but then you want to run either you create a new one or you. For example, usually I use the test database. Test.
what's my, can I have this? My database is this?
You should have a database called Postgres. So just connect to that. And then
I give that a shot. Was there PSQL?
start the server.
What's the command just to list out servers that exist?
No, there's one server that you just start. Now you need to connect to it.
Oh, sorry. What's the way to list out my databases that exist?
Well, right now here I don't know, but if you connect to one, then I don't know. So connect to Postgres. Yeah, and here
Holy shit.
backslash L or backslash. No, wow. Complex database, Postgres, and then put that place.
I followed all your instructions really well.
Yeah.
Dude, high five me, man. I think you have a question before me.
And we have a question.
So here you can create either testing Postgres one or you create a new one like. Yeah.
How to, we have created a table.
Show me pair program. How to
Yeah, it's that, but you wrote it wrong. In fact, you one C to use VACUUM. Here, look at the slides.
It just says vacuum. It just says vacuum.
Yeah, so the print is not working. And if you, now you exit. Yeah, so the print for some reason is not working. So you did make install, etc. No, not just start, but make install.
Make and install from make.
Then I started the server, then it just connected.
Maybe the output is different. Maybe the output is not in the terminal.
Je vais voir au terme, monsieur, comment c'est ça.
I didn't make
The region where it but they had like
Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried this. Can you try running this in a terminal? Yeah, run without opening.
Ça, c'est le lien, le register par c'est le lien où on va mettre le printer? C'est où on met
They have
le
to
programme?
I have to create a table that has range type columns. Because they can look at this shit works, man. Doing the exercise.
是，然后重启之后才还有一个测试。
Not like this. You know the matrix, right? That's my favorite line. I say to students. Not like this. How do I tell it that I want this column to be range type? Wait. Type. Tell me the answers. Just tell me the answers. Thank you. TS. Test. I think I'm beyond the middle of big for today. But I really appreciate your and just R. That? Why? Why R? But all variables are R for this. And you don't need an and or an else. Just like this. Okay, so let's just make sure I got this right. So I'm going to create a table. I'm in PostgreSQL database. I'm going to create a table called range table. Column 1 has type TS range. Semicolon, right? Because it's my testimonial. Whoa, this guy's not wrong. Look at what you did. Okay. Now I want to do a size all range table. Oh shit, I'm still I want to say no. I want to say like it says come on, this is basic. Just wait.
Are you seeing that me? Zerako, I made a table.
You did?
I made a table.
Can you help me?
Okay, make a table with a range type called dot. Run, back, analyze.
Il a donc pas d'assemblée.
I think I get the wrong every time. Back, analyze. Bounce, semicolon. Then we go to back. I mean, all I do is run it and see what the next task is. Now it wants to make the display. I don't think it's supposed to return anything because you're just running. No, oh, that's something I was supposed to do. Where?
En principe, oui, il a fait il a fait
Oh, so I'm supposed to. Oh, I didn't like.
dans en principe, parce qu'il a fait tout le monde. Et en principe, il a fait tout le monde.
No, the whole point is that we are supposed to
Да. Tem password.
basic part of it is I see. Oh, this is okay. I'm okay with that. I thought this was like. Okay, I think we're just like testing to see if I can get it. Instance. Here it says that's why the speed probably is a bit worse. That's more gross. This one I'm going to do is okay, thank God. Do you know how long that would take me? That's 30 minutes right there. For someone that doesn't, this is in C. Do you know how to program in C? So we have to look up like how to do it. Okay, check this out. I'm gonna control those things. I gotta tap to this.
C'est parce que si dans cette scène, c'est des exemples simples. Il y a la police, dans cette scène, c'est des exemples simples. On ne peut pas ajuster
Là, on a de la position.
Ça me fait ouais. Mais ça, là, ça ne peut pas être pareil. Quand ça va être très petit.
Ah, c'est ça.
Et ça, vous devez retenir pas de c'est pas comme c'est pas mieux, c'est pas. Voilà, c'est
Okay, so start. Let's see. All the hands are up. That's it. Say bye to next year. That's cost me solved.
No, utilise ça.
Okay, so now I'm gonna hit save.
Si elle veut que les gars sont petits, voilà un display.
Oh, this is just showing that you can either print a statement or you can print a variable. So I inserted that
Ah, display vite attends.
into making now. Back here. Oh no, this is where everything is going. What does this mean? Add the source code.
Si elle veut le détachement du papier.
What again?
Okay, first thing I need to do is drop something. Donc là, c'est un problème.
I can remake it.
Tout le monde va jouer comment c'est un jeu là.
No, don't put your hands
C'est un problème pour nous.
We can do better than that. We gotta okay, because hello. How do I drop my database so it reads it? I gotta drop DBMS here. That's when I drop DBMS. So if I do a big file, or if I do like if I recompile it, does it just rewrite everything? Thank you. Okay, good. So we're good for that.
Sven plus de choses, ça va trop bon. Comme là, c'est marqué là, donc là, c'est le plus important.
Think about the text is one. So you're talking about this text interface. Why? Why do they use Can I make it big text? So I'll just make it exactly the same as it was. So you're talking about this and just do it. What is this on?
When you're overthinking, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Is it configure.in? Is that the problem with the one I'm seeing? Configure.in. What are you looking for? Configure. Or is this the folder?
No, that's just running in the terminal right this time.
But I did. And it said no such file.
You're in the Postgres.
Okay,
folder?
so I need to go to the
Yeah,
folder.
wait, one second.
It works in a very special way. He says something. I know you're here. I hope that you hear this because you need to understand. So you need to understand. They offer to stable Look at that. It's creating the files that needs to then make now I'm super focused. Oh, Maxime, it's going so well for me right now. Okay, now we'll face this thing. I even have this already. Our scores. Now I have to create a new database.
C'est pas ça le temps aussi, non? T'as pas les gens nous changer le display là. Je vais vous montrer la machine. Quand vous voyez ça vient de ici. J'ai pas besoin du display. Comme une chose, mais dans notre là. Give me skill. Give me. Ouais, tout les temps. On doit arrêter de dire. Là, ça c'est une autre.
Okay.
Quand on contrôle, tu as fait contrôle encore. Contrôle encore.
Non, depuis ça,
Zeros, fold is null. Look at how many jokes you can make. Okay, so now we put it back. Do you think whenever it's vacuum, it's going to get back? It's analyzing. Okay, let's make an hypothesis.
Tu veux me séparer
So what did we do? We changed tip analyze and we put in when rows returned. So it's going to
Vous allez bouger quoi?
listen, it's going to say, hey,
J'étais ici au repair. Tu vois le display là. Il y avait scale quoi.
c'est là-bas.
Tu vois, il dit, bam! Il a ça sur le
so I think I want to see the words.
Là, c'est là-bas. Là-bas.
It's fancy. What do you think? Hypothesis or just
Là, ça marche.
Le problème, c'est que il faut un truc ici.
D'accord. Moi, j'utilise un compte ici.
you have to make it big.
I tried running this test, but there is nothing printing for you too. Oh. Okay.
Ça pour l'état, ça.
Non, mais j'ai arrêté quand même. Si j'ai arrêté. Ouais, ça veut dire arrêter.
One second.
Semicolon.
For me, I did it also in my home. Like you have to change the config file.
Wait, you need to reconfigure?
No, I had to change the config file, not this one. The PG config.
Ouais.
I had to enable some flags. Actually, I like printed out to another file, for example.
Oh wait, maybe it's the log file.
C'est pas. Va regarder comment ça s'est passé. Va regarder les settings. Comment c'est qu'il est fait.
Wait, let me try it out.
Voilà, ça peut dire. Si on a sur le stand, on peut faire ça sur le stand.
You're learning on the side? Good.
C'est bon. Ah, c'est vachement plus calme, c'est pas
Voilà, c'est une demande. Voilà, c'est une display là.
Maxime. I put in the statement into tip analyze. I recompiled my database. I then ran vacuum analyze.
Yeah.
I did not see my error message.
Yeah, everyone has the same issue.
Okay, so that's the right way. I mean, that's not what you were expecting, but I'm going. Oh, thank
I'm
God.
trying to figure out why I have the same issue.
Oh, okay.
But it was working last Friday on the features last week. Maybe I'm thinking it's the output, I don't know why. Yeah.
Okay, now I understand why you're doing such.
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay, you do that.
现在听出来嘛，就叫我要录。
Ça, c'est une idée.
Oui, ça, c'est quelque chose de là, dans ce
Là, tu as soumis.
La façon.
Ça fait pas comment. Laisse ta machine, tu vas voir ta machine. Laisse ta machine, tu vas voir ta machine.
Okay, I figured it out. Excuse me? So many people were having issues that it was not printing where it should be printing, and so I figured the problem. Here, this, we should remove this because for some reason it's probably printing there instead of to the console. So remove that line when starting the server. Just remove this. And so for and just for example, so for example here, I wrote just test. So I'm just printing test. And now after removing that part, you see here, this is what, well, the vacuum is coming because of that line, and then the test, that's the print I'm doing. So removing the -l log file works, so try it out.
Bon, pour fermer complètement ici, ce truc. Ça, c'est même pas
Voilà ma c'est là. La machine dit aussi encore
You can basically like push. You can decide if you have like standard errors. Like you can, for example, write.
La menu, c'est ça, c'est le tunnel quand même.
And you want to write the errors.
Comment ça le dépasse? Comment ça le dépasse? Comment ça le dépasse?
And it will not display it on the user's terminal, but it will display to somewhere else where you
Comment ça le dépasse? Voilà ça. Comment? Ah, c'est toujours attendre. Sinon, ici, c'est la Windows. Il faut aller ma part, check d'abord bien les configurations.
我还在我重新 make 一个。
Le minus log, tout le minus log. Tout le minus log file. À partir du minus log, on a tout ça. Non. Le data is start is l'autre là. Là, c'est bon. Là, c'est bon.
my database.
Il a mis ça là-bas, non, ici il a déjà.
You're still in it too. No. I'm inside. Here. Start.
没有 print 出来啊。stop 怎么 stop？
Là, ça peut être un sens. C'est que vous ça marche du quoi, mais à tel endroit, il faut avoir les settings.
Non, là, je suis pas là-bas, tu peux regarder ça. Pas là-bas.
那个杠 D，知道吧？
放地在哪里？
有个杠 D 的
在哪里？
就是你之前其中一个有个杠 D 往上低那个
这个吗？
对，
我这里改成 stop。
对，你把它修。
OK stop 了。刚刚重新那个 stop 一下，再来一遍吗？可以吧？
你按上可以的。
Bro, I'm still. No, okay. That's the last time I do that. Sorry that I even brought that to your attention.
那个是只是联名塑料的，把那个装装进去。然后你在你在 PS 就要 start， 然后你在 PS 就要进那个
对，我
我之前建那个表是在
应该还在应该。
不能这样。对啊，就是每一次它应该是在刚才才会比，但是它没有刚才。是吧？
再次那如果你直接打 debugging 也有
Mineral return 30,000.
One number.
So this, okay, the history of this is people pack chewing tobacco into their
哦
mouth.
因为我里面有2张表，一张表是叫 test， 一张表叫 reservation。我刚刚呢只是要分析 reservation， 现在刚刚做这个话是分析了2张表。
是在看的蛮走的，是这个他做的，他是看一下。
反正把这些代码一起写。
io la prima di cosa che con il se la fai.
如果不给他说那个表格的话，我单独说这个。
Make the snap noise.
是如果里面一个
And then just like snap your hand.
No, bisogna capire.
比如说我把表格做给你看，做 Google 嘛，
Già c'è la
对，做
你要打分。
Grand success.
OK，再做 Google。
Next. Finish half.
Reservation。没有。
杠加提是什么意思？
就是table 啊
table， 请你列出所有 table， 这边还有一个
trade 是我们做那个
这个还是不要
data 我们 database 那个是你是做 database
我觉得越用 PostgreSQL 了是吗？
你要不要看我那个，不然你到时候你把你 PostgreSQL 烧掉了，我们 database
那我 create 一个 database 就可以，新的一个，然后在里面 analysis。
这是因素。
因为 JS 里面我用了我们另外一个项目，所以但是这个表我看没有。
对，这表没关系。
Basta, print message upload times per
你把这些东西都改了，那你到时候就不能去做。
text field.
你要等于是你要把这个
The function is
你要the minimum number of
但是你如果不要改这个系统，
没关系，我最开始那个原文件在这儿，我把它移了，我就
要占掉你的东西。
然后这个外框就没东西了，它就输不出来了。
那我们这个都把多少？把那个
And that red stuff that everyone spits.
外框垃圾收集可选性分析。
And it makes them go.
所以你刚刚讲的对，其实有跑的那种，可是因为你的 case table 里面没有任何一个时间去看的东西，所以你不会扣到那边，所以你的 print 就没有错，因为你除非是扣到那个时间去看的东西，所以你刚刚讲的那两个也都是有问题的。
pouvoir la mossa. Guarda che diciamo che è stato
welcome analysis，这是一个 welcome。
哦，其实是两个嘛，一个是 welcome 就是你看的是第一个讨论试一下 welcome 单独试一下那里。
这是 C。
那我的 analysis 呢 ？analyze 单独的是这个秒记，
这是两个步骤吧？我们这个两个步骤。
理解是吗？
welcome 是把那些物理上那些清掉，对，就是它可能不会。之前只是做个表，这条表给留下了，但是还留在那个内存里面，或者留着。那个就是强迫把那个群清掉，然后那个就不是最新的。
Clave device en español.
我想着把它想好。看一下。
You're researching about. Do you want some color? Doesn't have anything like alcohol or something.
I think they did
Then what else? What's the next?
That's all.
That's all? Just write 2 lines? This course? This whole exercise? Just write 2 lines? That's all? I learned nothing. What has task 2? Use print F display ring histogram. Where is
相当于是个什么意思呢？
So wait, is this saying that I thought this is saying that we're storing rows into stacks.
begin to feel sleepy?
Need this way. You have to have program this thing. Stop, exit, queue, Fiji kill, stop, help, help. Dude, no way. Do you think
这样子写出不条件想用可以
if we're not really automating, I'm taking
了解想懂条件，
we should go
不
for
对等方
massages.
式，
If there was a massage place on
你
campus,
选一个结果呢？完了，你报个 name settings。
they have one in Canada. I'm sure in India they have a massage place on campus. Come on. Really? Just sure. No, but in India, they don't have a proper canteen in India. Okay, so Iraq and actually, before I leave, I'm going to just make notes on the things that you use. Sudo install.
I just want to finish the previous task. Excuse me? So did most of you manage to print out the first value?
No.
No? Or yes? Well, what is the value? Someone has it? 30,000, yeah, so that's it. So the idea... Not most? What was the question? Okay. Yeah, so the solution was... But it's bugging, so... But the idea is simply to write these two lines, like the printf, and then the flush lines in the function. Wait, my thing is bugging. So in this range type analyze function, and then it should print. So simply write these two lines. Oh, come on, everything is bugging. Okay, my PC is stuck. We'll come back to that afterwards. But so as I said, we are going to have a quick discussion about the project. So if you have questions. Why is it bugging?
So I want feedback that many of you are struggling with the code. Let's discuss together the solution. So my understanding is that the problem was first the code, and exercise, this exam session, is to put you in interaction with the code and how to build PostgreSQL and how to test your code. So how you think this problem is somehow relieved? And then the second problem is the theoretical part that many of you don't find an idea about a statistic that would be used for selectivity and join. Do you want that we discuss together an idea?
Okay, why not?
Why not? Okay. Good. So no objection in discussing idea. No one wants to.
That way, give you the.
Is it HDMI or?
Yeah, it's HDMI.
Discuss the idea.
So we're gonna show them our idea. I'll discuss our idea.
I mean, it's a theory idea. It's not teaching you how to code.
Was selling.
It's just discuss how you do statistical things, how you make it better.
If you want to analyze what they got me here, does it mean that my daemon,
So you are with me here? Hello? Do you see this clearly? Should I zoom in a bit? How about this? Or maybe better?
Yeah.
So, assuming we have two relations, I'm going to explain basic idea about basic statistics that can do join, can also do selectivity. But you are not bound to it. So if you want to do smarter stuff, please. And also there will be some room for you to innovate here. So we have two relations, R1 and R2. And assume that it have range of number. So the first relation has these red ranges. One range going from here to here. We don't know the values. I don't put the values here. So forget about this now. Just look at the red lines. So these are the ranges in the first relation. Okay, so we have five tuples. Every tuple contains a range. And this is just visualization of the range. Some data I invented. Is this clear? Mm-hmm. And now we have the R2, the blue relation. Also have 5 ranges distributed as such. Yeah. So one idea is to do just intersection, or call it frequency histogram. Yeah. So I divide the whole space, the whole extent. So I have the first range happening here in this red relation. The first range happening here, so I start here. The last range is ending here. And then I equally split. That's an equi-width histogram. Mm-hmm. Split the whole extent, say in 10 splits. Okay, we assign the statistic target to 10. Mm-hmm. So we have 10 splits. And then I count how many ranges intersect every cell. So here we have 2 ranges. Here we have 3 ranges. Here we have 2. We might argue about this one. I saw it that it folds completely here. Here we have 1. Here we still have the same one. Here 0. 1, 1, 1, and 1. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And the same for the second relation. Again, the extent, which is different than the extent of the first relation. Maybe by chance the 2 extents never overlap. So that will be something here. Here I create the example where they partially overlap the 2 extents. So again, the statistic target is 10. So we want to store 10 cells. But then the width will be different because the extent is smaller. So I take the first, that should be pushed a little bit here. So it should be the last value. Mm-hmm. So it should be shrinked a little bit. Sorry for my drawing here. And then we split into, again, 10. And we count how many blue. So that's 1, here 1, 1. This partially overlaps, so it's 1. And so on. Here we get 2. Here we get only this one. You understand? Mm-hmm. Please.
When you say that you split into 10, it means that the field length is 10 for every field?
The field length?
No, the field length is 10 for every. When you say that you split into 10,
I take the full extent of the data. Yeah. And I equally, an equi-depth, equi-width histogram. I equally split into 10. So pins, yes. So assume this value is 10. This value is 100. So the total width is 90. So we split into 10. So every one will be 9. Okay. How to do joint estimation? So now I don't have the data. I only have the histograms. And I get a query as such. Select whatever from joining R1 and R2 on the overlapping of their attribute R, which is the range. So that's a joint query. You understand? Mm-hmm. And this joint query, the optimizer is going to estimate selectivity for it. How cardinality? So it's going to, it's now your job to write the joint estimation, to load the 2 histograms, and what would you do with them? Intersect the 2 histograms, right? So here, I move them a bit close to each other. Now let's forget about the data itself. So I just move the data a little bit away to have a clear view. And move the histograms close to each other so you can see. First from the data, how many tuples will return from this join?
It would be the minimum number where there's overlaps.
Let's count.
Oh.
This blue is going to join with the two red because they overlap. So we have two.
We don't have one. Why you say that one blue joins two red, so you're
Because they will overlap. So two tuples here
yeah.
will overlap with this one tuple.
But one tuple will overlap with that two. So why your result is two instead of one? Like
So it's
you count the number of table one or count the number of table two?
we count the join.
Okay.
So we have
okay.
table one with many tuples. Every
Okay.
tuple is a range. Table two with many tuples. Every tuple is a range. And now tuple one from the blue will join with tuple one from the red. Tuple one from the blue will join with also maybe tuple five from the red.
Yeah.
So we get two tuples in the result because of this overlap, right?
Yes.
And how many we get? Three. So 2 plus 3, 7, 0, and that's it. So we get in total, the query, this query is going to result in 7 results. Bravo. Good. So let's try. How to estimate this from the two histograms. So that's the actual result we are going to get. And normally our estimation should be close to this. Yeah? So how to estimate from the histograms? My basic idea. You are smarter. Here I estimate there will be 1, here I estimate there will be 2. So we get a 2, we multiply.
Okay.
Yeah, so someone take note please. So then from this intersection between the histograms we get 2.
Yeah, we're taking notes.
Yeah.
You are filming? Yeah. Oh wow. No, but I need someone to calculate with me.
Okay, I'm on it.
So that's 2 plus again 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus another 3 for this little tiny piece plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 0. That's a multiplication, huh? Plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1. How many?
19.
19. That's very far from the 7. That's bad estimation. It's an estimation, but it's a bad. How to improve a bit? Well, here we didn't account for the fact that one range is overlapping multiple.
Actually, I'm wondering if can we divide it by the average length?
Nice. Tell your idea, please.
It's like because we just look the second line, there have five ones, but actually there are only three items in relation to. So we can divide it by the average length of the relation to. So we need to know it's 3 items sector with relation.
Yeah, so we need to account also for the range length. Now I put the red again up. And this guy a little bit down. So let's see in average. In average, one red range, how many cells it crosses. So this range, how many cells? Two. So someone please count. And this one, 4. 2 plus 4 plus 3.
9.
3.
13.
13 over how many ranges? 5. So in average, 2.6. In average, one red range expands 2.6 histogram cells. So we need to divide the estimations that we got by this average, but also by this average. Let's look here. That's 1. 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2. That's a little bit here. Yeah?
1.6.
Over 5, that's 1.6. So now let's divide the estimations that we got by these two averages. Then how much it is?
So 19 divided by 1.6 is 11.88.
And then divide it again by 1.
Okay. So if you divide it by 1 and then the other is 4.5.
Yeah, it's 4.1.
So 4.5 while we get 7. Now it's better estimate.
But then you can also improve it by taking the average of the averages, maybe, and taking the original 19.
So can you create from here? Can you be creative from here? Or even find another statistics and see mine is my histogram?
So for your solution, I guess the way it's currently done in Postgre, they have their upper bound, their lower bound, and a length. For us in overlap, we're only really looking at the upper bounds and lower bounds, so we haven't been like using length because of it's more of an edge case of contains or contained, and so it sounds like we don't necessarily need to be thinking about it in the same way of upper bounds, lower bounds, and contains, or sorry, upper bound, lower bound, and length. We can choose our kind of what boundary we want to use depending on what stats we're doing.
So, in my opinion, the problem with the current statistic, which works well for selectivity but not for join, yeah, the problem is that we split the uppers from the lower. And like this, we don't know which is which. Which upper bound combines with which lower bound to make a range. Yeah. This is why that's the first idea me and Maxime got while designing the project. Let's keep the range together and do a count histogram, frequency histogram, call it whatever. Yeah. So like this, we know how the range extends. But you have the problem that one range extends over multiple, and you can think of multiple ways to optimize. For example, instead of counting 1, I see this range expands 3, so I count 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That range expands 4, so I count 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. You get the point? And then accumulate from this. So you need to do some analysis around it, maybe experiment, find ideas to improve. Okay, and how about selectivity? I think you can imagine selectivity looks like straightforward. But for selectivity, you are acting with a single histogram. It's not a join, so it's one relation. So if we do overlaps and give some range, then you can directly estimate from this histogram again.
We just need to find the upper one, and calculate these. I mean, the straightforward.
How to implement, you
solution-
mean?
Straightforward solution would be like just find with the range stars, find out the range tables, and calculate the range between these two.
And combine the values of the histogram between these points. But again, you need to account that one range is intersecting multiple cells, so it's going to be counted again and again. So you need somehow to normalize.
I have a question, like,
And you can, for normalizing, you can also think instead of a global average for how many cells each range intersect, instead of a global average, maybe we take more detailed averages for this section, for that section, for every section some average. I'm improvising now with you, huh?
we divide we select the target of the schema. But in this case, you have selected 10, so we can select whatever we want. What if our
So you can select whatever you want, but you don't want to make a histogram of medium, because that's going to be, yeah, that's going also to be a lot of storage, because you will store it and load it, and that's time. Please.
So the length of each field, each part is important because if you check like a small thing, in that case you will have a very big array. But if you also take like very big thing, in that case you will also lose some important information.
Yes, it's always a trade-off. So it's better philosophy to put a statistic target like what Postgres does. So I can afford storing 1,000 values. That's to be done in milliseconds. So that's fine. If I store 2,000, I get more granular, more accurate estimations, but that's high cost. So you decide how much you want to store, and based on this, you detail your statistics. So you do it the other way around, reverse, backward.
Which is like a fixed length for the array. Like, okay, it's going to take like 1,000 things.
Yes.
After that, we just
You take the range of the data and you split that many splits. And like this, you respect your guidance is how much you want to store.
Can I think of the selectivity as a special case of the join? Because it's like when we think about the selectivity, it's like there is only one item in relation to only one row. So
Yeah, that's a philosophical question. Okay. Yeah, if you solve the join, you probably will always be able to solve selecting.
Okay.
Join is more difficult than selecting.
So can we just quickly go back to range selectivity or not ranges for just the value?
How it is done for normal values that are not ranges. Okay, so that's my. So let's first, with this solved, or at least now you have one idea in bucket. What other problems you see?
the other problem that comes together is like linear operation. The problem here is that you have like the histograms, and now you don't have the ranges. So how do you know?
But you do have the histogram counts the ranges. So imagine I tell you a query. No, but that's not required from you. So you need to do join for only overlap. Selectivity is for a single relation. So for a selectivity query, we will do from R1, where R1R is strictly less than, that was the operator we required, right? Some range, say for now, that's not a correct syntax I'm writing now. I say 1 and 5.
No.
No. 1, 5. So again, that's not a correct syntax. It's just for illustration. And assuming that that this value, maybe let's do here 10 to 15. It's more convenient. So assuming that this is 10, yeah? Of course, you will know the values of the pins by dividing the extent. So assuming that 10 is here, or maybe it's in the middle here, better in the middle here. So I want to know how many in this relation will be strictly left of this point. How many? Yes. So you sum, but somehow you need to normalize on the length. You can also do write-off. You can do a complete range, overlaps. So if I give you greater than and less than, which is overlaps, then you can also do.
Maybe the question, but is it true that these methods that are already implemented are with the same frequency in each pin? There's a number of values in the same.
So with the current implementation, you mean?
Yeah.
The current implementation is completely different. It's another concept.
Yeah. So is it true that all of the same?
No, the histogram you have in the current implementation is equi-depth.
Yes. Okay. This is sort of question.
So it's the cells are not the same size,
So
but they have the same frequency.
In a way, you are suggesting
To do an equi-depth, yes. Otherwise, with the current one, I don't find a way to do joins.
Yeah. And with the current implementation of histogram, do you think that we can find a faster way and a better way to do selectivity? Because
I don't know whether doing selectivity with this or with the existing one will be more accurate. I assume that the existing implementation will be better in selectivity, but you need to assess. So you need to assess that yourself. How the current model being implemented is accurate with respect to this model in doing the selectivity estimation. I assume the existing one will be more because it collects more detailed information.
So our goal should be more about the drawing.
You add some functionality and you perform possibly.
Hoping that is not going to be hoping that is not going to be so bad for the selectivity. Something like that.
I mean, if you use this idea, probably you will end up with a situation that you have added some thing better for join, and you do less accurate for selectivity. So it's a compromise. Well, if you come with a model that improves selectivity and also does a join, that is going to be a breakthrough. And I trust there are such models. It just needs. Please. Yes. Sounds reasonable, but you need to assess the cost. So you mean if you find 2 empty slots, you store these, or even that needs one slot actually, one array. But then you compute more and you store more. The pre-processing is the vacuum analyze. But vacuum analyze is normally done once per millions of queries. So we can afford some more computational budget for vacuum analyze if it improves the selectivity. That's an idea, a good one.
Do you think it's important for us to be benchmarking the time it takes to run vacuum analyze?
That's required, yes.
That's required?
Because that's also a factor. Well, if I vacuum analyze in 10 seconds more, so imagine you are a user. You vacuum analyze, you expect to get a response in 10 seconds. If the 10 seconds will be 13, that's fine. But if the 10 seconds are going to be 1 hour, that's unaffordable. So you need to consider usability. So other questions with the project? Other problems, no questions.
Do you have a special requirement, specific requirements for the benchmark? How we can do that, the benchmark? What data set we should
Specific
use?
requirements for the benchmark. Well, the data set needs to be not biased. So it doesn't introduce a clear bias to favor your method.
Okay.
Randomized or real data set. Yeah? Excuse me. And then you understand what you need to assess. You need to assess the current selectivity versus what you are proposing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for join, for sure your contribution is infinite because you do something and before there was 0. So dividing by 0 is infinite. But for selectivity and for vacuum analyze, you need to provide some fair comparison. And fair means that the data is not designed to favor your algorithm.
Are there any range type analyzed data sets for benchmarking that already exist that we can just grab?
I would suggest to use something. You already use TPC,
DI and DS.
the DI and DS. Even if they don't have ranges, you can create ranges from the data that are there by combining any two numeric values. Or in this lab, you have a query that creates regular ranges, randomize them.
Okay.
Instead of regular, do random.
Is there, maybe, let me ask it higher level, is there guidance on like a statistically significant benchmarking for ranges? Because I'm thinking like you can have ranges that are long, you can have ranges that are short, you can have ranges that are sided to the left, sided to the right, equally dispersed. Like in my head, I can see 5 or 6 tables to test on, and maybe a 7th that's just random. But I'm just wondering, is there some guidance or existing data that exists, or something that says here's which one
A
of you-
benchmark data set for ranges, I don't know of.
Okay. Is it
But
possible?
it's good already that you are thinking of the scenarios that can happen. So when you benchmark, you want to see an average case, which is typically random, and you know your algorithm, and you know what is a nightmare for your algorithm. So also try it to show that the worst case ever is going to be like this. Yeah. You could also do best case, but then most important, because we are designing functionality in a database system, and that's a generic system. We don't know beforehand what kind of application is going to be built on this database. People who built Postgres didn't know what is going to be used for. So you need to build something that is good for the general case.
So in the project where the evaluation is against benchmark, is it like you're looking for the methodology in terms of
Yeah.
how we decide to benchmark?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also how it was implemented. So every part is theoretical and
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
Okay, so I heard also the problem of time, yeah, and I have an idea. So to me in the lecture we covered the core of the course. I still had 3 topics that were planned. One is distributed database, next invited lecture, but I planned a second lecture on distributed databases. Yeah, that's, I'd say, it's good to know, but the pedagogical value, and then the 2 remaining lectures were on MapReduce and distributed file system. So that's a big class of systems to see how, what ideas are ported from databases and how they map, so you get general understanding. But that's a helicopter view without going in depth. And another one for the NoSQL databases. So again, a helicopter view, seeing how the ideas of databases were invented. So these are nice topics to know, but the pedagogical value of the project is more important. So one option is that we stop lectures here. Well, after the invited lecture, we stop lectures here, and we continue labs supporting in the project. For example, some C stuff, some more exploration for SQL. Is this helpful? I was expecting no. We appreciate science.
How many lectures are we talking?
3.
Maybe we can.
So repeat. I don't hear.
They didn't hear back.
But I saw yes. So the thing is, for three lectures, I planned an elaboration on distributed databases, data flow systems like MapReduce, Spark, and so on, and NoSQL databases. And these, well, elaboration on distributed databases, that's an in-depth topic. And the other 2 topics are overview, mappings into relational databases, what kind of concepts are repeated there. So if you work with such systems, you have an understanding, although you studied relational databases, it's the same methods, even subset of methods. So relational databases are the most elaborate. All other systems are subset with additional functionality. So I wanted to give you this idea, so when you are working with these systems, you also have an idea about the internals and you know how to optimize. So that's, I wished to do, that's a plan. But to me, the pedagogical value of the project, that you have hands-on experience in developing, that's more important. And if I have to choose, if you tell me I have to choose because you are out of time, you are overloaded, then I give more time to the project, stopping the lectures. After the next lecture is there. We have a great invited speaker, and that we cannot miss. It's an opportunity. But then after that, we cancel the last 3 lectures, but we continue the labs for the project. How does this sound?
We also have last lectures because we have only 2 weeks and we have to submit.
Yeah, that was the one.
So they are not 3, they are 2?
There's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks for the project. That's all.
Deadline is
So
One problem at a time. Because I checked in my schedule, I still see.
I think it's the one.
So anyway, yes, now I think. Anyway, the very last lecture is too late, and we had the idea of canceling it. Yes. So we are canceling 2 lectures.
Yeah,
Anyway, the third was planned.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
So, but before moving here, is it in the same topic or another issue?
No, the same topic of the project.
Okay, please.
I mean, another option, like, was it possible maybe to have an extension of the when to submit the project? Maybe
But that's another topic. So I want to first on the lectures. I'm trying to mitigate with you solutions because the pedagogical value of the project is big and we need to maintain it. While you enjoy doing it. So please. No, that's it, no lectures. So this Friday and no lectures to the end of the semester. So two options. So I could also, alternatively, I could continue running lectures with no new topics on the previous topics, elaboration, question answering about the project. But I see that how many would want such kind of lecture? Yes, Q&A, elaboration on the existing. Please raise your hand.
Sorry, what are the options that we're voting against though?
Yeah. So continue running the lectures,
Yeah.
but in the form of revision and elaboration.
Okay.
Q&A. Well, for Q&A, I am available there. You can come anytime. But I understand that you need the time of the lecture.
Yes.
To sit and to work on the project. So the choice is to you. But others are getting a chance that you don't get when you choose not to come. I know the self-blaming that you have.
Can I propose outside of like a lecture, an open question and answer, something similar or more things similar to this, where it's a small, compact piece of working with PostgreSQL to continue getting exposed in that?
But that's we continue the exercise sessions. So we stop the lectures.
Okay.
And like this, there are no new topics, and we have the start of the exercise session. I can also be there. So we do to scale to the number, and then the chance is there. How does it sound? Anyone regrets not hearing about the wonderful topics I presented? There is just one more. Someone is regretting me.
Do you already have the content prepared? Because I'm just thinking, like if the content's prepared, and you show up to a Q&A session and nobody is there with any cues, is it possible to just do an optional, this isn't on the exam for those that are interested, and choose not to use the time for project work? Or
yeah, this kind of fuzzy lecture, some would regret missing the. No, let's be decisive. Okay. It's better to be decisive. That's better for everyone.
Would it be possible to just postpone the like?
That's the other issue here. So postponing the deadline of delivering the project, I have no problem, but I am afraid that it will take the time you prepare the exam.
Yes, by what? It depends.
Well,
one
big,
week it's a Christmas.
Yeah,
I mean,
big.
like if you have to submit on the 13th, so maybe we could submit on somewhere around the, I don't know, 20th, 19th, 18th.
Well,
and we are not asking like
the big.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem with the problem with extending the deadline is that after the deadline we still need to do evaluations.
Yes, exactly,
which means we need to allocate some time, and you will need to come for the evaluations.
I mean,
if it's later and if that works, then.
No, I mean, we do understand that you're not asking for like 1 month.
Yeah, no, I see.
Maybe what? 5 days.
So to push it 2-3 days.
Maybe.
So
because just
the number is very big. I see. I don't know exact number, but it looks like over 100. So meaning about 25 groups, meaning that we need 4 or 5 days for the discussions. I will open a calendar with slots so you can book each group a slot.
So sorry, these slots are these are both before exam time, and this
Yes,
is
these are
currently,
before Christmas holidays.
and this would be time that's currently not booked for lectures.
I will open as many, and if you have a conflict, don't choose that. So because we have many groups from many programs, and the schedules are not the same, so I cannot synchronize with the schedules.
But you're not expecting us to be present for other groups' presentations. I hope.
That's another issue. So some groups would like to see the work of other groups. So far, the discussions is closed. It's me, Maxime, and the group. If would you be interested? No.
老师讲。
每个小组都讲不同的 database 就是这个的话，你对，就可以了解上大概第一个，但是你说那你通常为什么跟什么？
Some of us, I mean, we couldn't wait because you know how the university does around Christmas time. So we had to
我觉得我们可以先想一下我们要。
I understand there are always exceptional cases.
就我们先
We will try to
不
work
管
with
这
them.
个代理，我们是什么，我们就
I mean, if someone will not be present,
That's idea.
So are we extending the deadline? So are we extending the deadline? Some groups maybe?
So,
对啊。
I'll see if we can do for a few days and still have 5 days for evaluation. I plan the agenda and squeeze it as much as close to where we need to deliver. And then after that, you book a slot, which is late, for example. Let's be practical.
At the moment, the evaluation was before blockers, right?
Before?
The blockers. Before the first week of. Yeah, it was during lesson still. The question is, can we push the evaluations to the study week? No, right? That's not.
No, they need to study for the exams. It's for your,
Yes,
for your invest.
That's why it's hard to push the deadline.
The project, so you can prepare for the
Yes.
exams.
and the exam is the first exam we have.
Yes.
This course. It's on 17th of January.
I don't have to
It's 17, yeah, it's 17.
Please.
If you give 2 extra lectures, will they be included in the exam or not?
Say again?
If you somehow give 2 extra lectures, like before planning to block, will they be included in the exam or not?
One option is to give lectures that are not in the exams, but that's a very fuzzy situation. So no, I prefer cancelling the lectures. Because then how many will show up? I also spend time, huh? So I don't want to spend too much. And the other ones will leave, and then they will become empty, so let's Does this material means either exam? No. Please understand. To me, the exam is meaningless. It's a requirement. It's a requirement. My focus is on the technical value you get. So I'm not trying to fail you.
Then we need more time for the project.
I'm not trying to fail you. I'm just No. Other general discussions?
So nothing was decided about.
So what's the decision?
Nothing was decided about the time.
Hold on, there wasn't a decision made. Guys, you have no decision.
It's just it's fair that you are organizing and that some people are there is some dependency.